Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, A H Almaas, who's here to share with us his new book, Nondual Love, Awakening to the Loving Nature of Reality. So is love a transformative aspect of the spiritual path? Today, A H Almaas is going to share with us just that. A H Almaas is the pen name for Hameed Ali, the Kuwaiti-born originator of the Diamond Approach, who has been guiding individuals and groups in the U.S. since 1976. Over time, the teachings have found a home in Europe, Canada, Australia, and beyond. Hameed is the author of many books, including Love Unveiled, The Unfolding Now, and The Runaway Realization. So welcome to the show, Hameed Ali.
Hey, Marianne.
What an honor it is to have you here to talk about your new book, Nondual Love. So, Hameed, a lot of people, when we talk about non-duality, there seems to be a lot of confusion around that topic. Can you explain for our listeners who are new to this topic what that means?
Well, it's becoming a popular term. Many people using these days. Many teachers calling themselves non-dual teachers. Most of the time when people say non-dual these days, they mean just spiritual. Instead of saying spiritual, they say non-dual. However, the word non-dual in various traditions means a particular way of experiencing reality, where the subject and the object are not separate from each other. So it's non-dual means no dual, no self and object. The two are inseparable. So non-dual really basically means seeing reality as nothing separate from each other, because everything is consciousness or everything is, awareness. So everything is one unified fabric that has many forms and shapes and colors. And that's called non-dual experience. And that's really the classical meaning of non-dual. And that's what I mean in my book about non-dual love.
So and thank you for taking the time to explain that. I think that's probably one of the best explanations I've heard of that. Why don't you share a little bit about the inspiration for writing this book?
Well, several different things. I've written many books about my teaching, which I call the Diamond Approach. And although I discuss love in different ways, I never written specifically a book about love. So I wanted to present the teaching of my teaching about love so that people recognize there is a deep and wide teaching about love, not just about many other things like presence and consciousness and spiritual nature. And the other reason is what many people know as love is emotional love. They don't know love in its essential or spiritual form, that is the ground of emotional love, because human beings care about love. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants to love, want to be loved, and all. So love pervades the human society throughout history. But the love that is implied in spiritual teaching is a different kind of love. It is the very essence and the very nature of love before it is expressed and relationship and relation to others. Before one says, I love you, one first experiences what is the love in their heart. It's not just a feeling of appreciation. It is a kind of presence. It's a kind of beingness. It's a medium of spiritual nature that has a sweetness. It has a goodness. It has a realness, truthfulness that is independent of time, independent of history, and that then shows what real love is. So that I wanted to make that clear. The other reason is that many spiritual teachers write about love, like Rumi, for instance. Poetry is all about love. So Rumi talks about love a lot. He rarely actually gets to describe what is the direct experience of love itself, not what it does. He talks a lot about what love makes us do, what makes us feel, and its impacts and effect on us, and how it make us drunk, this and that. But what's it? What's the feel of it? What's the experience? He doesn't get into that. So this book is a contribution toward all the literature about love to bring in the direct experience of the very essence of love. What's it feel like? What's it like? What does it mean to experience love that is before it affects us, before it impacts us, or before we express it? And that is recognizing that love is one way of experiencing our spiritual nature. So that is one purpose of writing about it.
In your book, you talk about how when we go beyond the individual soul, it requires some fundamental shifts in our perception. What did you mean by that?
We perceive things according to physical reality. I mean, there are objects, there are cars and chairs and trees and mountains, skies and birds and things, and each one is its own thing separate from the other. So the perception need to change so that we see these are simply manifestation out of the same fabric of reality. It's just like waves in the ocean or eddies in the ocean. That is what makes it non-dual. So it's not about love specifically, it's about non-dual love, because love doesn't have to be non-dual. I wrote my first book about love was Love Unveiled, was about love that is experienced before we experience non-dual love, as I call personal or individual love. But for non-dual love, our capacity for perception need to change, which means we recognize something about ourselves, that we are not only individual beings, but we are also part of the fabric of reality.
Very well said. Thank you for sharing that with us. You have so much in your book that I don't know if we even have enough time for a small portion of it here today. But one thing that stuck out to me, you talk about ownership of experience. And I'd like to know what you mean by that.
Very good question. Because it's normal for a human being to say, it's my experience, I experienced this, or this is my perception. And ownership means there's an individual ownership. Like me as an individual human being have this experience. It's my experience. Or and this is my perception. In non-duality, in non-dual perception, there's no individual there to own it. There is only pure, vast ocean of being or spiritual nature. So no individual owns it. It's always the expression of the infinite ocean of being, and in this case, love. So ownership is, if we still feel it is ours, my love, my heart, individually, that make it not possible for us to go to the non-dual level of experience.
So when we open our soul to divine love, what are some things we'll experience there?
Well, first you experience divine love itself. What's it like? It's basically is experiencing the heart or one's love as not within the chest, but as unbounded, not bounded by our skin. We experience a medium, soft, gentle, medium of inherent goodness. It feels like a kind of beingness. When I say medium, it's like substance, almost like a subtle substance, a very delicate substance that has a softness, that has a gentleness, a golden color, usually, beautiful, shiny golden color. And we see it as pervading the whole universe, pervading the body, pervading the mind, pervading the heart, pervading the environment, pervading the whole universe, and underlying everything. That is divine love. It is the love. It's like the love of the divine, like God's heart, sort of. God's heart embraces the whole universe. So we experience that, and the divine love then can express many things, can come through a human being. We know it comes through an individual human being, usually. But the individual human being is not a separate human being, an object apart from divine love, apart from the heart of God, but as a channel through which this divine expresses itself in the world of particulars. It's really a deep state of spirituality. It's not an easy one to experience. One has to have worked a lot on their ego identification and recognize they're not their ego. They are something else. That makes it possible to open to this realm of experience, which is a realm of beauty, a realm of light, a realm of goodness, but goodness inherent. And I mean, that's one reason I also wrote this book, is seeing that in this world these days, love is lost. Not much love around the world. There's a lot of discord, a lot of trouble, different kind. And I think if people recognize the love inherent to each one of us, that the love really pervades the whole universe, if we have access, if we are open to it, if we take a moment to challenge ourselves and not take ourselves to be the usual individual we think we are and go beyond that and experience love, that will be tremendous help for the whole world. I mean, that is one purpose of the book, and hopefully it could contribute to that. I don't know how many people will be able to do it, but if you manage to learn it from the book, I'll be happy.
There's so much wisdom in this book. I can't see people not reading this and picking things up that will improve their life. In your book, you talk about dimming the light and how that will really kind of affect our perception. I'd love for you to expand on that.
Yeah, well, what happened to most of us, which is a natural process, is as we grow up, the light of our spiritual nature is dimmed slowly by our various experiences and encounters with situations, many of them conflictual or difficult or challenging. That makes our consciousness, makes it want to defend, protect itself against insult, against hurt, against abuse, against difficulty. And that natural process, which is really for survival, is needed for physical survival. As we do that, we thicken our consciousness. As we thicken our consciousness, the light of our spiritual nature doesn't have the opportunity to shine through. So it dims slowly, and dims to various degrees for different individuals, depending on their opportunities in their life, their history, how much love they had in their childhood, and how open their heart is, or how closed, how defended. So the defended heart means love has been dimmed, the light has been dimmed, because love and light are two sides of the same thing. That's why sometimes I call divine love as loving light. It is like love and it is light, but it has a substantial quality to it, meaning it is not just a feeling, it is not just a thought. It is something, a medium that pervades our experience. We feel it as a palpable thing. And that gets dimmed for everybody. And then some people have the opportunity for their heart to open up through one mean or another. That's what spiritual teaching are for. Basically, is to open our consciousness, including our heart, so we can experience the light of our light of the divine, or you call the light of our being, or light of spirit. And the more light, the more we understand ourselves, the more we are authentically ourselves, the more we are authentic in the world, the more we are good and bring goodness to the world.
In your book, you share about how when we explore divine love, the diamond approach helps us to create a new perspective. And what would that look like?
Well, because diamond approach is the name of the teaching I teach. So diamond approach has its own way of working with the obstacles or the what dims the love, what dims the light. And the way diamond approach work with it is to first be open to what are the ways we learn to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves against hurt, to protect our heart from feeling wounded. And all the ways, which a lot of them has to do with experiences we've had in the past. It's exploring that, recognizing them, bringing them to the light of awareness, feeling them, feeling the hurt, feeling the situation, feeling the insult, feeling the anger or the hatred or whatever it is that comes with it, feeling it and understanding what's it about, what makes me feel that way. And that understanding, which means experiential, by feeling, sensing, and seeing the meaning of something, seeing where it comes from, what's it connected to. I call that understanding. This experiential understanding, when it happens, that barrier or that occlusion or that thickening will soften, will begin to dissolve. That way, clearing the way for the light to shine through. So that is the particular methodology that I have developed. I call it inquiry, which is inquiring into our experience, ourself, from moment to moment. So it is a slightly different meditation. I use meditation, all of that, but the primary method is an exploration of our experience in a direct, immediate way by feeling it, getting into it, embracing it, and being open to whatever it is, and not trying to change it, but more interested in what is its truth. What's it really about? Where does it come from? How does it affect me? This kind of exploration, most people don't bother to do that with their experience. They just experience it and they think that's how they experience things, and that's it. For me, this is the beginning of the story. Our experience is the entry into the inner realms, because it is the outer expression of them. And it comes through after many barriers, after many dimmings, after many defenses and ways of defending oneself, protecting oneself. And because we're protecting ourselves against our own feelings, not against other people, our own heart. We close our heart because we don't want to feel something we feel that happened in the past. And it's not easy, but it is possible. And with the right guidance, with the right support, we can engage that kind of process of exploration, which is really an adventure into our subjectivity, adventure into our own heart. And it is a challenging adventure, but it is an adventure, meaning it could be exciting, could be scary, it could be rewarding, it could be sublime, has all the element of adventure. But it is a contemplative exploration of our experience, so that experience will relieve itself of the layers or the veils that cover the light, that cover the love. That way, the love has the opportunity to come through and we could experience it directly in our heart.
As people are working with you, what is an area that they tend to get stuck in as they move into the light?
People come in different places. Everybody's different. But when it comes around love, many of the things that people experience is how they were not loved, feeling not being loved, or feeling not loved enough, or they were loved and then they were dropped, or they were abandoned, or wounding in love, that they loved somebody and the person betrayed them or rejected them. So there's a lot of wounds, a lot of hurts in the way of love. That's about love itself. Non-dual love, the other thing people bring in is their sense of feeling isolated, separate from the world, separate from others, sort of like as if surrounded by a thick shell. And that is, there's a way of working with all of these. But these are the kind of thing people present. But as I said, everybody have their own history, their own character, so they bring in different things. But most of it is around the heart when we're dealing with the question of love. People, it's like they're not asking about how smart I am or how effective I am in doing something. They're talking about their heart, usually, when we're dealing with love.
I would think that that's very difficult for some people, and especially in the West, a lot of people have their hearts closed off, especially during this time. So to open it, I can understand how that would be scary.
It will be very scary. So part of what people have to go through is the fear, sometimes terror, too. So partly they're afraid of the present moment, the being hurt in their life now. But really, the main protection is against hurts that are already there from the past. There's a lot of wounding. I mean, the heart is full of wounds and hurts and rejections and all kinds of things that are painful and difficult. But that's not the only thing. Sometimes one has love that's not acknowledged. They love somebody that wasn't reciprocated, or they loved their mother and father, and the mother and father didn't see it, or didn't recognize it, or misinterpreted it, and or judged it, or one thing or another. So sometimes it's love that is not seen or recognized, and that person get to experience that too.
Do people really have a tough time when it comes to that period of being able to release the feelings and emotions that are barriers to them?
Yes, but people are different. As you know, normal people have had different kind of experience in their life. Everybody's different. Grew up in a different environment, different family, different situation, different opportunities. So some people have tougher time than others. So if somebody was abused or traumatized around love and loved ones, that makes it a lot more difficult than somebody who is just, felt not loved as much, or they loved their sibling more than of them. That's an issue that many people brings up, but that's not as tough as feeling their love was used for sexual abuse or for exploitation, something like that. That's much more difficult to deal with.
So when we look at our reality, what is the physical world really?
The physical world, I mean, there are many views and different teaching about what is the physical world. Some teaching take the physical world to be a plane of reality, a real plane of reality, and there are other planes, different, spiritual or subtle. Some teaching, especially what's called the non-dual teaching, they think of the physical world, the way we see it, is not the way it is. It is because we are experiencing it and the limitations of our beliefs and idea. If we see it as it is, we see it's made out of light and awareness and love, that the physical world is nothing but consciousness. And in some very deep way, non-dual experience mean seeing the physical as not simply physical, as it is the appearance of something subtle, something like consciousness of love.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Hameed Ali in regards to his new book, Nondual Love, Awakening to the Loving Nature of Reality. We'll be right back after these messages.
The first thing you need to know about me is that I love my kids, but they are not my everything. They used to be, but that's when my entire life fell apart. In order to pick back up the pieces, I had to put the love I have for myself before everything else, including my kids. I'm Jessica Dennehy, and I own multiple businesses. I'm a best-selling author, and I have all the strategies that I've used to make my life what it is today. And I'm going to teach you how to do them in my new book, Selfish is a Superpower. So go get your copy today on Barnes & Noble or jessicadennehy.com.
Announcing a revolutionary tool for wellness. Scalar Light has the ability to enhance and harmonize your own bioenergies. With Scalar Light, you can get started in just minutes and begin feeling better the very next day. Scalar Light is a remote energy that gently and subtly works with your own body's bioenergies, increases pro-cellular wellness, and enhances your body's immunity.
Experience the benefits of Scalar Light. Try a complimentary 15-day experience at scalarlight.com.
In your hands lie ancestral patterns. These patterns shape how you think, what you struggle with, and experiences you love, your life pattern. We're going into the latest neuroscience of biological hand analysis, a realm beyond palmistry where science and the soul entwine. Hand analysis is the latest method to transform lifelong patterns. I am Master Hand Analyst Brent Bruning. Join us and visit thepowerinyourhands.com.
Looking for a page-turner? Cozy up to a fantasy adventure romance trilogy with The Girl in the Toile Wallpaper by Mary Kay Savarese. The second novel in the Star Writers trilogy, The Star Writers Club, is coming soon. Take the journey. Connect with Mary at www.maryksavarese.com. Her books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie bookstores.
The book Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis, authored by Danny Carroll, is on sale at Amazon now. Licensed psychologist and psychotherapist Tessa Antia-John-Guerra commented, "This is one of the most empowering books on the topic of cancer you will ever read." Award-winning author T.L. Needham commented, "This recommended book can be understood by anyone seeking answers, hope, and alternatives to a terminal diagnosis. Buy it now on Amazon.com.
With Breath Hub, you'll experience the transformative power of breath as it harmonizes your body, mind, and spirit. Recommended by experts in fitness, sports, psychology, and medicine. Meet the scientific way of being well. Breath Hub. Breathe better, live better.
Pandemonium. Fast forward 20 years. A U.S. president seizes control of all U.S. missiles, the power grid, the banking system, and every computer in America as he hides in an underground bunker. Pandemonium, a captivating sci-fi thriller where a hidden war, psychics, aliens, artificial intelligence, and transcendental love collide with the latest media technology. Pandemonium, live to all devices. Get your copy on paperback or digital. Free sample at getpsychic.org.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our special guest, Hameed Ali, who's here to share with us his new book, Nondual Love, Awakening to the Loving Nature of Reality. In your book, you talk about how our identity is a mental construct of our beliefs and images that are associated with our emotional patterns. I'd love for you to expound on that for our listeners.
Most people don't think about that. They think they know themselves. Oh, I am such and such a person. I was born such and such date, and as my parents, and I went to college, I did this and that. And that's their identity. But, when we explore deeper than that, we realize that identity has a lot in it of beliefs, of mental identification with things that we experienced in the past. Like how our parents looked at us, what other people thought of us, how we experienced ourselves as children, and how we had to experience ourselves to identify. We identify with the body for a long time for purpose of survival. We need to believe we are the body to survive physically. But I see that as a stage that most people don't go beyond. So it's a construct in the sense what the mind does is take all those impressions from the past and integrate them together into overall image of oneself with a feeling of self or identity. And that's what most people believe what they are. If you go into the spiritual level, you realize that, no, that's all in your mind. That's not really real. What you are is pure presence of light and love.
I would think some people have a hard time identifying just their human beings as an expression of love.
Oh, yeah. No kidding. No kidding. I mean, but it is normal. I mean, not just at the present time, all throughout all times, people see themselves as physical, as a body that has a mind. Even people who believe in soul or spirit, and they believe they have a soul instead of being the soul. When you move on to the spiritual dimension of experience, you realize, no, I am the soul and the spirit, and I come through this body, which is a different way of experiencing things, which is actually quite liberating besides being beautiful. And I wish more people experience that, and there are people who do learn it. But it takes a great deal of learning, a great deal of surrendering of one's protective shield. And in one's own mind, it's not like with other people. When people work with me, I'm not trying to pit them against others who hurt them, and work with their own experience and their own mind, the fears of their own fears, and they're not needed anymore. It has to do with the past. So it's a remnant of the past that people end up believing, and those remnants of the past are the underbelly, is the unconscious part of the usual sense of being a human being that most people take themselves to be. And that is not just me. All spiritual teaching recognize that.
So when we talk about God and true nature, is that the same thing?
Well, it depends, you see. And it depends on which teaching you're referring to. If you take the Buddhist or the Hindu teaching, it's not God, it is just true nature or spiritual nature. If you go to the Western world, into like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, God is the ultimate or the deepest source of our spiritual nature. So God is seen as the inner of the inner, as the source of all spirituality. instead of just. So God is not just love. God is a lot more. God is the source of love for the Western traditions. I mean, for me, I take spiritual nature and God at different words to talk about sort of the same thing with slightly different emphasis. Some people relate more to the word God to experience love or non-dual love. Some people have a problem with the word God, so they prefer through nature or spiritual nature. So I'm open to how people look at them, what's easy for them to. The point is to experience the actual light of love, regardless of what you call it. When you're really experiencing it, there's no reason to give it a name.
Is this really inviting the reader and our listeners to maybe take a look at their personal relationship with God or the divine, however they choose to call that?
That part of some people take that to ask them what is their relation with the divine. Do they believe there is such a thing? Are they open to it? Do they have sense of it? But also, other people will see it as an invitation to see there's more to them than what they take themselves to be. That there is a deeper dimension than them that I call spiritual. If they experience it, they experience it as their true self or their soul or their subtle dimension of their consciousness. And that's the invitation to look deeper, to question oneself and contemplate one's experience, one way of relating to not just God or divine, but to everything. Do we relate to it from the perspective of being just like one kind of animal that we call a human being, or we are beings of light?
I love that. The diamond approach that you have developed, does that have roots in ancient practices?
Well, it utilizes many ancient practices. And I studied many of the things. I studied the Sufi, the Buddhist, the Hindu, many things. I had teachers and practiced many of those things. However, the diamond approach developed on its own, and knowledge of those tradition, but also knowledge of Western modern psychology. I use a lot of the finding of modern psychology that the ancient didn't have access to. And the two are integrated in a way that happened naturally and organically, that developed into what I call the diamond approach. So it is contemporary teaching.
In your book, you talk about surrendering. And I think a lot of times people may get that a little confused, especially when we bring in the discussion of divine love into that or God. What do you mean by surrendering?
Yeah, it's a question that many people are confused about. They take surrendering from the perspective of the physical, like physically surrendering to another person, like an army surrendering to another army, dropping your arms and letting yourself be, to be defeated. Sometimes surrendering on a subtler level, people, they think surrendering is something they do. Surrender means I say, okay, I won't resist, I won't protect myself, I will drop my protection, and that way I will surrender or let go. That is how many people think of it, sometimes even experience it. But the true surrender is not something we do. It is like the grace of the divine. When we are ready, when we are open, a grace appears, and grace basically dissolves the protection of the defenses, and we call that surrender.
So what is grace then?
And grace is the divine love appearing in our life, in our own experience. As if something coming from some other source, not us, and melting us, impacting us, softening us. It might appear inside, or it appears as if it's showering us from outside. So grace, of course, is like a blessing, but the blessing is the being showered with divine love itself.
Now, in your book, you have a quote that I think, makes sense, but I think a lot of people would also look at that going, okay, well, wait a minute. How does this pertain to my life? You talk about many of the difficult things that happen in our life, or our lives are also blessings in disguise. And I'd love for you to expand on that.
Yeah, so that's another meaning of the word blessing or grace, which is that many human beings have blessings in their life, in the sense that their life, things happen in their life. Either they're born to a situation, or encounter a situation in their life, or opportunities that are sort of give them a better possibility of freedom, of happiness, of fulfillment in their life, and that comes out of nowhere. It's like one can't explain it. Well, how did they come into this good fortune? I don't mean necessarily, financial fortune, although it can be that way, but many people have that good fortune, that good, some people say luck, or destiny, or this and that. But it is really the action of grace that is where we don't see the force of grace. We just see the impact that it has in our life.
Well, you touch on trauma within your book quite a bit, actually. And is there any positive aspects when we look at trauma?
Trauma, nobody that traumatized will think there's a positive aspect. Not at the beginning of recognizing and feeling it. It will be difficult to call it a positive aspect. However, I've worked with people who had trauma in their life. By embracing it, in confronting it, or working with it, and resolving it, it becomes an opportunity for them to learn and mature and go deeper in themselves than they would have otherwise. So it can be an opportunity for growth and development. But for most people, the trauma is too hard to deal with, so it's hard to see it as an opportunity. But I know the people who've worked with it, they learn about themselves a lot. They learn about their, to resolve trauma on a deep level, one has to go to their spiritual dimension, because it's not enough to work with it psychologically, which is how most trauma therapy happen, which really helps a lot. However, for complete resolution, for traumas, traces to go away, one has to learn to be their spiritual being, to recognize they are a being of light. Then trauma becomes something of the past.
In some ways, I've heard that called like the lesson too. It's something that will move us beyond our comfort zone.
Yes.
So when we talk about, grace, so we've been kind of sharing a little bit about grace. In your book, you want people to share with you an experience of grace that they've had. Why is that?
Well, when you see, the book has in it some interaction I've had with the students. And sometimes part of the work, the inquiry, is for people to recognize the moment of grace they experienced in their life, so that they might have not sort of reflected in it, might not have focused in it. By recognizing it and embracing it, they might open up to further grace, or to more direct recognition of the divine love that is behind the grace. Because many people experience grace in one kind or another in their life and know it consciously. Sometimes they don't know, they just feel their life is good, something good happened in it. They don't know why. How come they've been so lucky? If they recognize that, they might have the opportunity to go deeper in themselves, recognize what are the deeper forces that are making that possible.
And that would allow them to also be a little bit more comfortable with divine love or God or however they choose to identify.
Yeah, make them more comfortable, more open to it, and not scared of it, and be comfortable, and learning to be in that realm as part of a human experience. That is, it is actually part of the human potential for everybody, and it's actualized by some, but every human being has that as their inherent potential if they have the way of opening up to it, of approaching it, that by going through the fears and the hurt and going beyond them by embracing them. We embrace, we go through by embracing. That's the method. It is, so it's not a transcendence. It's not just pushing it aside. It's going through it by understanding it, by illuminating it.
What are some of the questions you get asked often from your students?
Well, some of the questions you ask. How is non-dual different from usual experience? And sometimes, if there is divine love, where is it? How come the world is a mess? Right? It's an ordinary question. Many people ask me, say, well, if there is God, if God is loving, or if there is love that pervades the universe, where is it? I don't see it. I see love, trouble, love, hatred, love, enmity. So that's one question that people ask that makes them doubt the existence of such possibility of something like divine love, the way I write about it in the book.
So how would you answer that question then? Because I think for a lot of people, that would be a difficult thing to overcome because the world is a hot mess right now.
No kidding, yeah. Well, one way I answer it is by saying, well, if you look at the human body, you have all these cells, right? And organs and cells and all of that. On the cellular level, you can get sick. You get some of the cells become cancerous, right? However, if you look at it from the perspective of atoms, that everything is made out of atoms, the atoms are always perfect. They never have cancer. They never have illness. They're always the same atoms. So it's looking at the same thing from two dimensions of itself. So the human body has the level of cellular level and have the atomic level. They're both together. They're both the same in some sense, but looked at from different lenses. So divine love is like the atoms to the cells. The atoms, but they are spiritual atoms, not physical atoms. This is just like I'm using a metaphor analogy to explain the relationship of an underlying nature like love or light to what we see outside us, which is a lot of trouble. There's some goodness in the world, of course, otherwise it won't survive, but there is a lot of trouble. And but that is seeing it from the perspective of the physical body. Some part of it is good, and most of the time it's healthy, sometimes it's sick, and all that's true. However, on the level of atoms are always perfect. So that's one way I answer it.
That's a good way to put that. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's a question I think a lot of people would have, so I appreciate you taking the time to go over that with us and talk with us about that.
Yeah.
In your book, you talk about guidance. Can you share on that for our listeners?
In spiritual work, we become aware that there can be an inner guidance. You could say the guidance from the divine or guidance from a more spiritual nature. And the guidance doesn't mean you should marry this person, not that person, which many people think guidance is, but that's what people go to psychic to to tell them or the road or something like that. Guidance in a spiritual path is more feeling, recognizing which way to look, which way to go. It's more pointing, an arrow pointing in a direction, but not telling you the end, where it's going to go. So it tells us which way to go, where to put our attention, what to explore, or in our action, which action seems to be more aligned with our true nature. So it's very intimate, subtle, and very close to our heart, the sense of inner guidance. It's not like a voice in your mind telling you do this or do that. That's not guidance, what I mean by guidance. Inner guidance is an inner sense, almost intuitive, of sense of knowing the direction.
So with the diamond approach, what would you like our listeners to know about that and your book?
Well, to learn about that approach, because there are many books that I've written under my name, people can go to our website where much of the teaching happens, which is diamondapproach.org. Go diamondapproach.org. They'll see many of my talks. They will see ways of accessing the teaching, way of finding teachers and guides in the teaching. So we have groups all around the world and teachers all around the world who are trained to do this work. I've trained many people. I don't just do it by myself, because our work, it's not enough for me to give a talk and give a teaching. But we need teachers to work individually, one-to-one with students, and in a regular, ongoing way, sometimes goes on for years, to help them find themselves, to give them a sense of guidance that in time become internalized until the student find their own guidance.
I love that. My goodness. Well, it's such I really was so impressed with your book, Nondual Love. And can you share your website with us one more time?
Diamondapproach.org. Diamond approach as one word. Diamondapproach.org.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thanks, Marianne, for giving me the opportunity to speak a little bit about my book. And hopefully what I talked about by itself will be useful to the listeners. And if they read the book, they'll find out more details, But hopefully this conversation can be useful, can help people reflect on themselves, open up, connect to something deeper in themselves. I'm just hoping it will be useful.
Well, thank you, Hameed. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Nondual Love, Awakening to the Loving Nature of Reality. Nondual Love is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And remember, support your indie bookstores. If you don't see it on the shelf, just ask for them to order it. You can also pick up this book directly from the publisher, Shambhala, at shambhala.com. To learn more about Hameed's Diamond Approach, please visit his website, diamondapproach.org. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise.
Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.